Hi, I'm Rick at Rick Turns, and today's video is... Hello, I'm Rick Morris. It's the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and in the spirit of the Christmas season, I thought I would take a solid billet of aluminum here and turn it into a miniature Christmas tree. Now, I've got this big chunk of aluminum here, 12 inches long, and it is 2 1/4 inches in diameter. I bought it some years ago. I was going to make a tool handle out of it and never got around to doing that. This will not be an ornament for hanging on the tree. This will be a Christmas tree itself. So I'm going to shorten this block down because I don't need anything that long. Aluminum is pretty soft. It'll work with wood turning tools. It'll work with this bandsaw blade. Let me raise this up just a little bit, I think. I've cut this down to a little over 7 inches long. Yeah, I'm going to turn down just a little bit of thickness here so that it will fit onto my chuck and get a good grip in the 2-inch jaws here. Now I've mounted it into the chuck. I've got a 3/8 inch bit right there. And that's going to be the diameter of the hole where I'll be mounting the top ornament chunk of wood. Got a short piece of Padock mounted right here. And I am going to turn down a tenon to 3/8 of an inch to fit in the hole that I just drilled in the top of the aluminum blank. That's about 1,500 or so. And going to bring the tailstock up for pressure. All right, I have started rounding down or bringing this chunk of aluminum down to round. Okay, I've got the whole column here rounded down, so everything's fairly smooth. So now I got to start shaping it into a Christmas tree. And I am not going to do the top ornament until the very last thing because I want to keep the tailstock in place. Just a brief update. The top ornament piece busted off while I was doing this, so if you're following along at home, don't put the top ornament on until you got this piece shaped pretty well. Also, I've turned the lathe up to the highest speed, getting really nice shavings off, and so I'm running at about 3,200 now, and working primarily with the semi-square carbide tool. Now, one thing I found is that my dedicated shear scraper, which I made some years ago, which is just a carbide tip mounted at 45 degrees on a square bar, is really working better than the other carbide tip that I was using. because this will sit very nicely on that square bar. I can just move it right along, and that's working pretty well. I think I've about got the general cone shape here, and I'm going to stop with this. I'm going to sand the whole thing before I proceed, but then I've still got more work to do to cut in the leaf or the branch areas right here. You can see right there where my top ornament piece of wood busted off. I'm going to have to drill that out again too before I can proceed with it. But that top ornament is going to be the last thing I do, just because of the vibration and so forth when I'm cutting the aluminum. I'm ready to start sanding this piece. Now, from what I've read, aluminum dust is fairly toxic, and you don't want to get it in your lungs. So if you're going to try this, sanding aluminum, be sure and use good lung protection. So what I'm going to do for the sanding, I've got an RZ mask here, and I'm going to wear it right there. And on top of that, I'm going to wear my AirShield Pro, which has filtered air intakes. And I'm going to turn on my dust collection right here. Hopefully that's going to get a lot of the dust. And then this fan that's right here in the corner of the video there, I'm going to turn it on, and I've got a window open back in the workshop. So I hope that fan's going to pull all the air straight through there. Any dust that the air filter doesn't catch, I hope is going to get sucked out that way. So I think I'm okay there. I'm not going to bother to show the sanding. It is just as boring as sanding wood. So I'll be back in a little while. This is the surface of the Christmas tree blank now, after sanding with 80 grit sandpaper, and it's pretty good now, except that of course it's got sandpaper scratches all over it. So I'm going to proceed to sand some more. Now this is after sanding with my highest grit, which is 3000. Looks like I'm going to have to settle for a brushed aluminum finish instead of a shiny aluminum finish, because that did not do real well. Maybe I should have spent more time with, say, the very lower grits to get the initial scratches out. But I'm going to stop sanding at the moment, and now I'm going to put in the branches. I need to mark the location of my branch cuts. For that, I'm going to use a little ruler here. So I'm going to start at about 1.5 inches, I think. So this would be the end of the lowest branches, and right down here I'll be turning a trunk, probably somewhere right in there. So then I've got 6 1/4 inches. So I'm going to go from this end, going to mark off 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to go 3/4 inches, and I'm going to go 1 inch, and I'm going to go 1.25 inches, and I should go 1.5 inches, which happens to be right there. Whoa, almost like I'd planned it, right? Nah. All right, at each one of these lines, first I'm going to make a cut with an narrow parting tool. That will basically define the lower part of that particular branch segment. Okay, let's see how this cuts. So I'm going to be starting this process here using a 3/8 inch spindle gouge. This little spindle gouge is working really well, but I have to clear the tip of it, like I just showed you, pretty often. Not because it really gets dull, but because it gets aluminum kind of build up on it, and then it won't cut. The other thing I found is, using this in the slight scraping mode, this really cleans up the surface nice. I'm not going to have to sand nearly as much, and I probably should have done that earlier instead of doing all that sanding. I started kind of carving down the trunk there. Still using this. I'm almost done with the cutting. Of course, I still have to separate it, part it off. It's still a little bit rough here. There's little circular ridges here, as you might expect. And I found that it works rather well with scraping. So I'm going to go back over each one of these branch areas and just go over it real lightly, get it as smooth as I possibly can, because I don't really want to have to sand it too much. But I have put another little piece of wood right here on the top of the ornament, and this will be the top ornament. As you recall, I busted the other one off. I should not have put it on there that early. So now I'm going to shape this into a top ornament. Sanding is all done. The aluminum part down to 1000 grit, the wooden part down to 1000 grit. I am going to put on friction polish right here. I'm going to put a little right out here, see how that's going to look. That'll be okay. All right, got a coat on there. I'm at about 1100 RPM there. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put it all the way down the tree here. I normally do my buffing on my buffer. I think this time I'm going to do it right here on the lathe. So I've got some carnauba wax here, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on. I'm going to try buffing it with a paper towel. That's looking pretty good. Now I got to figure out how to get it off here. I don't really want to cut it off with a bandsaw or even a hacksaw right here, because then it may not sit flat. I wouldn't be able to dish the bottom. I'm going to see if I can part that off. It's probably going to be a long process. Alright, it didn't actually take as much time as I thought it would to cut this down. As you can see, I've got maybe, what is that, a 1/16 of an inch left there. So I'm going to see if I can just twist it off. There we go, popped right off. Got just a little bit of a stub there. Should be able to carve that off with a chisel, or it's not going to interfere with it sitting flat anyway, but I am going to take it off. It is done. Turned out pretty nice. It's not as shiny as I wanted it. Kind of more like a brushed aluminum effect than polished aluminum, but hey. So overall, yeah, it turned out pretty good. I'm pleased with it. It took a long time. It takes a long time to turn that aluminum. It turns fairly easily, but it does take a while. So, see you next video. Merry Christmas. Ho, 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 ho. Wait, there's only 3 hoes. Ho, ho, ho.